In this video, we'll be discussing heat of fusion and answering two questions about it. Heat of fusion is the amount of heat energy required to change the state of matter of a substance from a solid to a liquid. It's also known as enthalpy of fusion, and its units are joules per gram or calories per gram. The first question reads, ice bag therapy is used by sports trainers to treat muscle injuries. If 260 grams, and notice that the decimal is right after the zero, this means that we have three significant figures. If 260 grams of ice are placed in an ice bag, how much heat in joules will be absorbed to melt all the ice at 0 degrees Celsius? Now, to answer this problem successfully, you'll need to know a constant, and that's written underneath. The heat of fusion of water is 1 gram of water is equal to 334 joules. That is, in order to convert 1 gram of solid water, ice, to liquid, you need that much energy to do that. And if you're confused about how much 1 gram of water is, think of a small cube that's 1 by 1 by 1 millimeters. Anyway, going back to the question, we have 260 grams of ice. So 260 grams of ice, that will be multiplied to, remember this is a conversion ratio, and all conversion ratios can be written as a fraction. So we can write this as 1 gram of water over 334 joules, or we can write it as 334 joules per 1 gram of water. Depending on your needs, remember we're looking for the amount of energy, we would use this version, because by using that version, look what happens. This unit and this unit cancel out. This technique is known as dimensional analysis. So you take a look at what you need and make sure that it's at the top. So by multiplying these two numbers, we'll end up with the amount of energy that we need to convert 260 grams of ice. So 260 times 334, we end up with 86,840. We need this to three significant figures because this number was three significant figures. We write down 86800. 86800 joules. And if you want this into scientific notation, 8.68 times 10 to the power of 4. Let's move on to question 2. In a freezer, 150 grams of water at 0 degrees Celsius is placed in an ice cube tray. How much heat in kilocalories must be removed to form ice cubes at 0 degrees Celsius? So notice the difference here. We are going from a liquid state, water, and placing that water into a freezer, forming ice. In addition, we're discussing kilocalories as opposed to joules in the first example. To do this problem effectively, you'll need to know a conversion ratio, and that 1 calorie, or 1 kilocalorie, we should say, is equal to 4,184 joules. 4,184 joules. So just keep that in mind as we do this. We have 150 grams of water, so 150 grams of water, and I'll be using the heat of fusion of water again, which is this conversion ratio. I'll make sure to use that version, 334 joules per 1 gram. This will cancel out with that, leaving us with the amount of joules. And then we'll be using this conversion ratio to find the amount of kilocalories. So I'll place 1 kilocalorie at the top, and at the bottom 4184 joules. Notice that the joule unit will cancel out, leaving us with the amount of kilocalories. 150 times 334 divided by 4184, and we end up with 11.97. We want this to the correct number of significant figures. That number is two significant figures because we didn't have that dot like we did in the previous example. So we should also round this to two significant figures. The answer should be 12 kilocalories. So 12 kilocalories need to be removed to form ice cubes if 150 grams of water is placed in this ice tray that's placed in a freezer. And there you have it. That is how to solve heat of fusion problems.